risking head and skin. If we're behind
Adem Yze has been on the club's official podcast today with Richo, and it was a fascinating chat. So I thought we'd take a couple of minutes to break down what was said, to talk about some of the key points, because there's actually a few things that we've learnt along the way that we maybe didn't know previously, which was really, really good. So what we'll do, we're going to roll some clips from that interview, and then we'll talk about those points as well, and just elaborate a bit more and share some thoughts on it. And obviously encourage you guys to put your thoughts in the comments below as well after each segment. Before we get stuck into it, if you're a Tiger fan and you like the Richmond content, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We're on the march to 2100, and we love and appreciate all the support you guys give. It means the world to us and really helps the channel grow. So with that said, we'll have a look at the interview with Adem Yze. The first topic that came up was just in relation to a couple of deck chair shuffles with the coaching staff, which I didn't personally realise myself. So I'm not sure if any of you realise that these things took place. I'll roll the clip from Yze and then we'll discuss it.
Is we go into a more of a development program. So we've got a lot of young players that need upskilling and little things that we've shifted. So we shifted a couple of our coaches around, for instance. So Ben Rutten, rather than doing a line, he's overseeing our coaches, making sure that we're educating the right way and making sure that we're making every minute matters, or every minute matter in our coaching and our development and education. So he's overseeing that. It helps me. We've got another set of eyes for our coaches so we can upskill them. And then Jack Zeeble, for instance, was a stoppage coach last year. So he was full-time in the AFL program. Right now, we see more benefit for him to be in the development room. So we've got 24, 25 really young players that need that time. So we're kind of going one less in the AFL program, one less coach. Blake Carousella's come in. He'll look after stoppages, and we've got a couple of guys and a couple of analysts that will help him with that. But we just see that the benefit's going to be around our development and how fast we can fast track the development of these boys.
So yeah, really interesting to hear. Obviously, we're on a very developmental track in our time at the football club now, so things have had to change. So it's interesting to see that they identified a few moves needed to be made, in particular the Jack Zeeble one, who was a midfield line coach for all of last year in a full-time capacity, and now he's been taken away from that role and put more into a developmental role, because we've got, 24 youngsters into the program now that need that love, care and attention to help fast-track their development. So that kind of leaves us one short on the AFL front, but then Blake Carousella steps in, and he's such an experienced head. He knows his stuff. He was one of the big reasons why we had the success that we had a few years ago. So he's obviously taking on a bit more of a role to help fill that void left by Zeeble, who's doing the developmental stuff. But I didn't know that we shuffled the deck chairs like that. So being one short at AFL level is going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the course of the year. I think we're very lucky with the fact that it's Blake Carousella filling the void with his experience and background. If it was another new coach, it may not have worked so well. So I don't think we'll be left too short in this space. But this is, I guess, one of the disadvantages of how I suppose the soft cap and everything like that set up. But yeah, interesting to hear. But Zeeble, huge job on his hands with the development side of things for the young kids. And I actually really like him in that role, being a player who's so fresh out of the game. He's got a pretty good understanding of the ins and outs of what's required to be an AFL player in very, very recent times. And I think that might be a bit more relatable to the players. So I actually think it's a really good decision to have Zeeble in that role. So all the best to Jack for that one. There's a lot riding on it, to be totally honest, but I think we're going to be in good hands with him. Following on from that, Yze started to talk about the game plan and what that might look like when the Tiger Army get to the MCG on Thursday night to watch the Carlton game and for the 2025 season as a whole. This is what Yze had to say on the game plan, what it might look like. Let's take a look.
Expecting to see when we come across the G on Thursday night against the Blues.
Yeah, I think most teams right now, like all the good teams, play a front half game. Yeah. So I think we've got a pretty potent midfield that we hopefully can have some dominance around stoppage. So that gives you the first opportunity to play front half footy. So we want to be really stable in our defence. I'm going to preach to our players, irrelevant of who's in the team. We play team defence, so you're one cog in that system. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be hard to play against on defence. So really stable on defence, have a really potent offence. We just need to change gears on offense. I think in our DNA, and it has been at our footy club, around playing fast. And when we did win premierships, the rules were a little bit different. You could play a spare behind the ball and just create counter-attack footy. But now with the 666, it's hard to do that. We'll have that part of that part of our DNA that will come out in games.
Yeah.
But at times we need to slow the game down and just possess the ball. So we're just trying to find a balance of both.
So what's interesting about that, I suppose he's really strongly hinted at the end there that we are going to see a lot more of that slower tempo style football, and their reasoning for it is on the back of the 666 rule, slowing the game down, which in some ways it has. I'm not sure it's slowed it down all that much, because you look at how Brisbane are playing and how Hawthorn play and how Collingwood play. All those top teams are still playing footy at a fairly breakneck speed and with pretty good success. They've pretty much mimicked what our plan was, and they're still executing it really, really well, and it still proved to be successful. So I kind of hope we don't go down that path too much. Like you said, though, we've got to find the balance of that fast counter-attack football and the possession football. My only worry is, and because we haven't seen it with the full side on the park yet, so this might change, but my worry is, do we have the skill set in our playing list to execute a slow tempo style football? I'm not so sure. I haven't seen too much evidence of it to be overly successful. And for me, and even take Richmond aside, tempo football bugs me because all it does, it just allows the opposition to flood your attacking half, and you've got 40 players in one part of the ground and you can't hit a target, and you're pretty much forced to bomb it on top of someone's head. I think you're a much better chance to mark and goal if you move the ball quickly, especially, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, when you get the ball at that 80-metre mark from goal. I don't want to see tempo footy there. I want to see it move quickly. Give our guys a chance. If there's 3 one-on-ones, let them go at it. I don't know why you'd want to have more numbers defensively in there to congest it up for you. So it'll be interesting to see what the balance looks like there. The other interesting point was how he rates our midfield as very potent at winning clearance. Now, we did actually win the clearances against Collingwood, so on that part it's probably somewhat factual. I still don't know I'm still not sure on the balance of the midfield, which I know I've spoken about before. Prestia, Taranto, Hopper, all the names Yze mentioned are going to be featuring in there, which we knew anyway. That's not a surprise. I just still think there's still that balance to be had, because if we don't win the hit out, if we don't win the clearance, they're pretty much gone the other way. And while I love Nank as a ruckman, he's very undersized for a genuine ruckman. So when he comes up against the real big boys, it's going to be a lot harder to win those centre bounce contests. So that's going to be interesting to see how we adjust to that. But yeah, interesting to hear about the type of football. I suppose the supporters, you want to see the ball moving a million miles an hour. Tempo football, I think we would love to see to help stem the bleeding a bit. If we can concede a few goals in a row, I think that makes sense to take the sting out of the game. But when we're trying to attack, I think we'd like to see it just ramped up just a little bit, because I think we play our best football that way. But the coaching staff we trust, and they're going to find balance with it. So let's see how that pans out. The next topic Richo asked Yze about was in regards to positional changes and player movement, especially those that we saw in the Collingwood game. Let's take a look at what Yze said, and then let's come back and chat about it.
Bruce, what about positional changes against Collingwood? We saw, McIntosh go into the middle, big body, obviously experience loss, so he brings that. Is that something we'll see more of, and are there any more moves that you have positional-wise this year?
Yeah, well, we've moved Cozzy, so Jacob Kashitsky's gone into the back end. Campbell Gray did that last week, and he's going to stay there. Look good. So we sort of knew that anyway. Noah Bolts is going to go down and play down back as well, so he's training with the defenders. But Camden gives us the flexibility. We know what he can do as a winger, but he's a big body. I feel like Tim and Hop can shoulder the responsibility a lot, so we need some support around that. So Jack Ross is going to be really important as well. And we've got some young midfielders that need that experience around them. So as I said, Camden, we understand we can always show his magnet back on the wing and he'll do it, no issue. But what it does do is give us a different dynamic. He's a big body, good runner, and it gives opportunity on the wing. So Thompson Dow went on the wing on the weekend, and he has done for the last couple of games, and James Chazai. So we're trying to find some different players for different roles, and to be fair, they've found a little niche. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Trigger and Dowie on the wings in round one, which would be nice.
Now, I think straight off the bat, the first thing I'm going to say is maybe we get a bit of a small tick on our Now Hear Me Out when we spoke about Camden McIntosh having more of an inside midfield role, which we could see and we were hearing about a few weeks ago, but we weren't sure if it was going to materialise in the real AFL world, but it seems like that's going to be his role moving forward. And as Yze said, they know what they get from Camden McIntosh when he plays on the wing, so they can easily flick the magnet there if need be. But he adds a bit of a point of difference in the midfield with his size, his speed, his experience, and it sounds like it's something they're going to persist with. Now, I know that Camden McIntosh has drawn some diversity of opinions from people over the journey. I truthfully don't quite understand the negativity towards McIntosh, because I think while people maybe get caught up on disposal numbers and stats and things like that, the reality is that there's probably 20 other players in the team who have similar disposal efficiencies, and no one points the finger at them. But what K-Mac does, he's unrewarded running. The things he does off the ball for the team to help set us up and get us into better shape goes largely unnoticed. And you need to have things like that happening in your side. And they're the type of things that these kids won't know how to do just yet. So I think what we can take from what Yze said, we're going to see a lot more of Camden McIntosh in 2025 than maybe a few people thought. So I would start getting used to it if I was everybody. And interesting that he spoke about Dow and Trezise on the wings, which we obviously saw against Collingwood. Dow was probably more the surprising one, but I don't know if it's going to be successful or not. I'm happy for him to try, and at worst case, he can be a rotation through the midfield when Camden's not in there or whatever it might be. So there's room to move there. Trezise on the wing I didn't mind. I thought he looked okay, and he can obviously roll back to halfback as well if needed as well. So couple of options there for those players. The other interesting note was Noah Bolter training with the defenders, which I'm sure everybody is glad to hear, because it kind of just ends speculation about where he's going to play. So yeah, Yze's got him down as a defender. And Campbell Gray, the defender as well, which the club seemed to know was going to be a good position for him too. So very interested to see if he comes into the fold for round one as well in the absence of Noah Bolter. Yeah, very, very interesting. The next topic that Yze spoke about were the draftees, the 8 new players to the club. I'm not going to show the footage on that of Yze's interview because it goes for about 5 or 6 minutes and I don't want to crowd the video as such. But the main takeouts from what Yze was saying were, like Harry Armstrong seems pretty much set for a very early debut. He didn't necessarily say round one, but it was really interesting to hear that he identified the same things that I kind of thought were valuable as well, and that other people saw too, that it wasn't so much about the 4 or 5 possessions he got, but more about his willingness to crash pack, split it open, because then it brings our smalls into play and lets them go to work. And that's something that the coaches value. So don't be shocked to see Harry Armstrong play, potentially even round one. Yeah, he's obviously done all the right things. And Yze even mentioned his body shape's even transformed a bit as well. He's starting to grow into his body. So that's really positive signs for Harry Armstrong. Lawler, he said, is just like a bull at a gate, like a sponge, and he reckons he'll be bashing down his door on Monday to be playing on the Thursday night against the Blues. So assuming that Lawler gets through the training sessions this week and Monday, it sounds like he's probably going to play if he gets through them all okay, which is lovely. Smiley, Yze's leadership, pardon the pun, and has been super impressive in that sense. And again, as a body of a man, and is ready to go, and just had that minor setback with the hamstring that we obviously found out the other day. Yze didn't give a timeline on that one, probably not his job to, I guess, but we'll see him when we see him, I suppose. Taj Houghton, he had a big cheesy grin on his face for mentioning Taj Houghton, and I mentioned the other day that I kind of feel like that Taj Houghton could be our next Shane Edwards, and Yze kind of likened him a bit more to Shea Bolton with his evasiveness, his awareness, his smartness around stoppages and things like that. So, because I think Yze saw him firsthand a bit last year. He's going to be a really, really fascinating player to watch when he gets into the program mid-season. And he's probably going to have to play a few VFL games to get his body right and confidence and some form together and things like that. But when it starts to click for him, he's going to be a super fun player to watch. Very, very exciting. Loves to take a hanger as well, so keep an eye out for that. He's got springs in his shoes. Luke Traynor, he was very complimentary of with his 12 or 13 disposals. Very level-headed player. And I think Yze made a good point that when Traynor does play in the back line, he's surrounded by a bit more experience with Short, Vlosten, Broad, players like that, which I think it helps with your calmness, knowing what you've got around you. He didn't exactly hint at Traynor playing early. I personally hoped to see him maybe even round one. He just showed ultra calmness and a really good skill set out there that I think would be well suited to AFL football. But the one that probably stood out with the chat from Yze was Sims. It even probably sounds like that Sims surprised some people at the club a bit more with how much he's progressed. And to Yze's point, that Sims has a bit more of a point of difference about him that might springboard him ahead of some of the others in line for a game, because he can do the backup ruck work as well because of his height and size. But they love the way he goes about it, that they love that he crashes packs. And yeah, maybe he's someone that we see a bit earlier than expected. And Jonty Fall, I should throw in at the end, Jonty Fall is obviously back from his back injury, so he's starting to train a bit more on a full-time basis now, which is good. But Yze speaking about, I would even call it leadership traits of some kind from Jonty Fall, speaking up a lot at meetings, asking a lot of questions, really absorbing what's being asked of the forwards to do. And they're pretty much, Yze said that they've held him back a bit because Jonty Fall just wants to hit packs. He wants to hit bodies hard when he goes for a mark, which is great to hear from a supporter's perspective. But we just don't want him, hurting himself or other players this early in the piece. So he'll get eased into it, but no doubt when he gets his chance at AFL level, he's going to be a competitive animal. You can just sense the genuine excitement by the club about how competitive this guy is. And they kind of reiterated again how lucky they thought they were to get him at that pick. They knew he was highly rated by a lot of other teams. So Jonty Fall could be one to watch for maybe around 7-8 onwards potentially once he works into it. Maybe we see Jonty Fall in the forward line. Who knows? But good to hear Yze's thoughts on some of the young kids there. The next topic for discussion was the ACL crew, which is still annoying that we've got a crew with those ACL players in it, but here we are. Gibcus and Tyler Young are progressing okay. Gibcus, obviously one of the first ones to do his knee, but could be one of the last ones to return. They're not really going to put a rush on him. Tyler Young, same thing, probably going to see him a little bit later on. But what Yze did say about those two in particular is their willingness to get involved at the club at other levels. So helping out with AFLW, helping out with VFL. They're just really invested and just really giving their time back to the club as well, which has been amazing and a really good, selfless thing to do. So hopefully those boys get back out on the park sooner rather than later because it really helps shore up the back line. And it's just, you want them to get a free run at it. McKelty Lafau was mentioned as well. He's, obviously tracking really, really well, being a big, powerful unit that he is. And it sounds like he could be someone that Yze definitely sees partnering with Tom Lynch up forward, given that the work that Lafau did in the season last year. He really worked his way into the season, taking some good marks, converting some nice long goals, playing as the number one forward, mind you, which he probably shouldn't have had to do. It's not really his main role. So to see him play with potentially the second defender or third defender, I think would really help free his game up a little bit. And Yze also made mention as well of the fact that McKelty Lafau can do some rucking duties as well, which I know can be a little bit dicey when coming off knee injuries and things like that. But when he makes his way to the side, I fully expect to see him in the forward line and doing some ruck duties. And that might actually give us some more speed and flexibility around the ground just with the way the team shapes and forms. So that could be something good to look out for as well. The next player that he spoke about was Judson Clark, who I'm really excited about, and he had this to say about Juddy.
A bit of at AFL level in the previous couple of years before doing his ACL was Judson Clark. How's he going? Is that smile still on his face?
Yeah, it is.
I saw him at the golf day. He's always smiling.
Never stops.
Yeah. He's a great kid, and as a left footer,
yes.
it does give us a different dynamic. He's actually training as a winger. So we know what he can do as a forward. He's a clever forward and he can hit the scoreboard. But having a left foot winger, I think is really important. The way that we want to play, and James Shazais is doing that now.
And the pace that he
and
has.
The pace. He's a beautiful ball user. He's a great kick on both sides of his body, and he's joined in. So I think he had a bit of a hip flexor the other day, but based on his knee, he was going to join in match play tomorrow.
Awesome.
So he's not far away. So that will take a little bit of time. He'll need to gain some confidence in getting through however many match simulations, but he's probably the closest out of all of them to playing, which is nice.
So Juddy Clark, as we know, is a super talented footballer, really good pace. He's got an extremely high footy IQ, and he's one of the quickest players to get ball to foot when it comes to a shot on goal that I've seen for quite some time. So to hear Yze talking about him playing off a wing, I reckon that's a great position for him to play. And it seems like Yze is very keen to have a left footer on one wing and a right footer on another wing. So Juddy Clark, I think, can do that. The Kane Lambert type role, I guess. He's got good running capacity, great off both feet, just needs a good run at it. And he has all the tools and capabilities to make it. And I think he's also got the right attitude as well, which is really important when it comes to this. Just needs the run without the injury. So given he's one of the first ones back, I know there's been a few sessions that they've had to hold him back from trying to join in. He's super keen to get into it, as you can imagine. But I'm super excited to see Juddy Clark have a crack at the wing role. I think he's going to be very, very well suited to it. And that concludes the full breakdown of the Adem Yze interview on the club's website. If you want to see the full interview, make sure you head to richmondfc.com.au. It's on their homepage. Make sure you check it out. It's a great interview. But yeah, that is my take on the Yze interview. Plenty to look forward to again for 2025 for Tiger fans. It's all about the small wins, the development, the growth of players, and whatever happens, happens. So if you like the content, make sure you subscribe and like for more. And I'll see you for the next video. Go Tigers!